Are you getting a divorce and wondering if you will be able to keep your retirement accounts? I'm Matt Dolan with Dolan Divorce Lawyers in Connecticut, and today I'm going to explain how retirement accounts such as 401ks, IRAs, and pensions are divided in the divorce process. First off, it's important to know that Connecticut uses an equitable distribution standard, which means that a judge can divide up assets based on what he or she feels is fair and equitable, which is not necessarily equal. Sometimes what a judge considers fair and equitable is that only the marital portion of retirement accounts are divided. So for example, if a husband had $100,000 in his retirement account at the time of the marriage, and now at the time of divorce he has $200,000 in his retirement account, a judge may only award the wife $50,000, which is 50% of that $100,000 increase to the retirement account during the marriage. And in other cases, the judge may ignore the premarital value of the account and just divide the retirement accounts equally. Now, whether it is likely that the judge will back out the premarital account values really depends on the length of the marriage. The longer the marriage, the less likely a judge is to divide out that premarital value. There's no bright line rule on what is considered a long-term marriage for purposes of dividing retirement accounts, but a general rule is if a marriage is 20, 25, or even 30 years or longer, the judge is less likely to back out that premarital value, particularly if the parties raise children together. Now, whose name the retirement account is in does not carry a lot of weight. What's much more important is when the money was accumulated, either prior to the marriage or after the marriage. Now, with all of that said, the outcomes are always unpredictable. You never know how a judge is going to rule. So because of that, it is always best to try to settle your case without the necessity of a trial so that you can have some control over the outcome of how assets are divided. Now, as far as the logistics of how the accounts are actually divided, pensions and 401ks will require what is called a Qualified Domestic Relations Order, or QDRO. And that is essentially a legal document that is drafted and submitted to the court. And once approved, that document is sent to the financial institution for the institution to divide the account without there being any tax implications. So normally when you make an early withdrawal from a 401k, for example, you have to pay taxes on those funds and you have to pay an early withdrawal penalty if you're under a certain age. Now, a divorce excludes that necessity to pay a penalty or taxes. The funds will just be transferred to the other spouse without those implications, and they will only have to pay taxes as they withdraw the funds at retirement age. And that's the same with pensions. Those are divided with a Qualified Domestic Relations Order, because normally a pension cannot be divided absent a divorce. It's also possible to offset a retirement account using another asset. So for example, if the husband has $200,000 in his retirement account and the wife has nothing in retirement accounts, but there is also a house worth $200,000, the wife may keep the house worth $200,000 in equity, and the husband keeps his retirement account so that there is an equal distribution of those assets. Now, when you're dividing assets, it's important to keep in mind the tax implications that are associated with those assets. So $200,000 in a 401k is not the same as $200,000 in home equity, because as you take withdrawals from the 401k, you have to pay taxes on that money. Whereas if you sell a home with $200,000 in equity, you do not have to pay taxes on those funds unless you're required to pay capital gains taxes, but that is unlikely and only happens when there is a significant appreciation in value of the asset between the purchase of the asset and the sale of the asset. So just keep that in mind and make sure you're looking at the taxes that are associated with assets when you're dividing them up between you and your spouse. So those are the basics on how retirement accounts are divided in the Connecticut divorce process. As usual, if you have any additional questions, we would invite you to contact our office. And if you are looking for representation in a divorce or family law case here in Connecticut, you can contact our office as well.